Welcome guys to the 7th and the final lesson of this course. In this lesson we will be creating UI and UX. So let's switch over to Unity, and first let's start by importing the UI package that is provided inside of the Hyper Casual Game Course asset folder, and go to lesson 7 folder and then import the UI package. Now let's go to our canvas and let's create a new UI panel, and let's call it menu panel. And we can remove the image component as we don't need that. Now let's move it up above the game panel like this. Now right click UI and create a button. Let's move it down over here and let's scale it up. Alright, now let's go to our Hyper Casual Game Course folder and open up the UI folder and drag and drop the rounded button over here like this. And now let's change the color. I'm going to set it to light blue like this. Then open it up and delete this default text, and let's create a new TextMesh Pro text. Let's change the text to play and change the font asset to Futura Bold and increase the font size to 45. Change the name to label and change the name of the button to play button. Right, now our button is ready. Next let's create a shine or glint effect for our button. So right click UI image, let's increase the height to 300 and width to 50. Actually let's set the width to 75 and let's rotate it by minus 30 degrees. Let's go to color and change the alpha to 50 and move it over here on x-axis to minus 275. So we are going to move this image over here like this, so it will look like the button is shining. Then go to a play button and then click on add component and add a mask. So now if we move the image, it looks like that the button is shining. So let's move it back to 275 and change the name to shine T. Alright, now let's create a script so we can automatically move the image from left to right. So let's right click and let's name it shine effects. Open up our script. Let's start by deleting these unwanted lines, and let's do using dg.tweening, and over here let's do public transform shine T, public float speed, public float minimum delay, public float maximum delay. So we will be randomizing the delay so it doesn't look too repetitive. So let's change the update function to animate and make sure this is being called when the script starts in the start function. Over here let's do shine T dot do local move X, and over alright, so we need one more variable, public float offset. Now over here let's do offset and pass in speed. Next let's do set delay, random dot range, minimum delay, maximum delay. After that let's do set ease dot linear. Then let's do on complete. So once the animation finishes, we will do shine T dot do local move X and move it to negative offset, and we will finish the animation instantly and call the animate function again. So once the function is called when the script starts, it will keep looping forever. So let's save the script and go back to Unity. And let's add the shine script, and let's assign a shine T for our offset. The offset is the X position of shine T object, so it's minus 275. So offset is going to be 275. So if we go back in a script, we are moving the shine T to 275. That is, if I disable this mask, you can see now properly. So the position, the start position is minus 275. If it moves to 275, it will move from left to right, and then once the animation finishes, we are resetting the position to back to minus 275. So it will reset to minus 275 and it will call this function again, so the animation will play again over like this. Now let's go back and enable our mask again. Now let's assign our speed. So for speed I'm going to do 1, for delay 0.3 and 0.5. Alright, so now let's hit play and see how it looks. Alright guys, so it looks pretty decent. So next let's create our input field where user can type their own name. So let's do UI text mesh pro input field, and let's move it up above the play button. Let's change the name to input field. Next let's scale it up, so let's change the width to 250 or 200 and change the height to 80. Let's move it down over here, and let's change the background color to something like dark gray, and go back to our UI folder and drag and drop the rounded square over here like this. Then open it up and go to our placeholder text, and over here let's do player. So this is going to be our default text, so let's change the text color to white, and let's bump up the font size to something like 30. Change the font asset to Futura bold and disable the italics. Then change the alignment to middle and center. Also let's increase the alpha. Now let's go and copy the text component and go to this one and paste the values. Alright, so now let's hit play. So if I click on it, alright, so it's not working. Okay, so disable the game panel first, because it has a full screen joystick, so that is blocking our mouse click. So it's going to stay disabled by default when the game starts, and we will enable that panel when the player clicks on play. So if I click now, you can see that I can type the name. So let's do something like Ninja. Alright, so it's changing the text. Perfect. Now let's create a functionality so that we can save the name and load the name when the game starts. So let's go to our game manager script, and let's create a new variable called public input field, name field, and over here let's create a private variable called username. Alright, so in start function let's do if player preference dot has key username equal to player preference dot get string username, else username equal to player. Now let's go down, and over here let's create a new function, public void save username. So username equal to name field dot text player preference dot set string username. Now let's save the script and go back to Unity, and then go over to our input field, go down over here where it says on value change, click on this plus and then drag and drop the game manager script, go over here and then select save username. So whenever the user changes the text, it will save the username, and then go over to our game manager script and let's assign our input field over here. Perfect. Now let's go back to our script, and over here let's do name field dot text equal to username. So what's happening over here is when the game starts, we are checking if there is a saved username or not. If there is no saved username, we are going to set it the default name to player, and we are going to set the name field text to username. Now let's go back to Unity and let's hit play. Now let's change the name, Ninja. Let's stop and let's hit play again. So now it should show Ninja when the game starts. There we go guys, perfect. Alright, now let's create our matchmaking panel. So let's close our menu panel and right click UI panel, and let's change the color to black and also move it above the game panel. Let's change the name to matchmaking panel. Let's change the alpha to 200 maybe. Actually let's keep it to 150. and as you can see it has small white border. So let's change the left to -2, top to -2, and do the same with right and bottom. Now let's right click, UI, TextMesh Pro label, change the font asset to Futura bold, and let's change the text to matchmaking. Let's scale the rect transform. Let's change the alignment, move it up over here. Let's increase the font size to 40. Next, let's duplicate this and move it down, and let's call it searching for players, and let's reduce the font size to 35, and let's scale the rect transform so it's all in one line. Also disable the menu panel so we can see it clearly what's happening. Next, let's create a new image, and this is going to be our loading image. So go over to our UI folder and drag and drop our loading image over here like this. Let's scale it up to 150 by 150, and let's change the color to something like blue. Alright, also let's move this down so the distance between this label and the loading image is somewhat similar to the distance between this label and the loading image. Alright, after that let's create a duplicate of this one and then parent it under the image, and let's change the text to 5 out of 5. So this is going to be our counter of how many players have joined the game. Let's reduce the font size to 32 so it fits perfectly inside of the loading image. Now let's go over to our image and disable the raycast target, and let's change the name to loading image, and change the name of these texts as well. Just set it to label or whatever you want. Alright, so now let's make a small tips panel where we can show random game related tips to the player while they're searching for the match. So let's right click, UI image, let's scale it up to 400 and 200. Let's move it down over here. Let's change the image to rounded square. Let's duplicate it and parent it under the first image. Let's change the name to hints panel, and this to background. Let's change the color to dark blue, and this one to a light blue, and reduce the width to 390 and height to 190. Alright, now let's create a new, actually let's just duplicate this and parent it under this, change the name to label, and change the text to tips, move it down, change the color to black or dark gray. Now let's duplicate it again and move it down. Let's scale the rect transform, and let's reduce the font size to 30. Change the font color to something like dark blue. Alright, now we can have a random tip, something like knock out other players to get extra points. So let's center it, and let's also reduce the rect transform. Maybe reduce the font size to 27 so it fits properly. Actually, we can even increase the panel size, so let's do that. Going to increase the hint panel size to 450 and width to 225, and do the same with this one, so 440 and 215. Let's move the tips label over here and size this label properly. Alright, that looks okay now. So I'm going to change the label to hint label, and let's create the matchmaking functionality. So let's go over to Game Manager and open up our Game Manager script. Let's start by creating few new variables. So public transform loading image, public TextMesh Pro player count label, public text mesh pro hint label, and then public string, and this is going to be an array so of hints, so hints. Now let's go down and create a new function. Private IEnumerator, do matchmaking, yield return new, wait for seconds, random.range 0.5, 0.25 to 0.7 f. And then first let's do player count label dot text equal to 1 out of 5, and then after some random delay we will set it to 2, and we can just copy and paste it a few more times, and third time it's going to be 3, fourth time it's going to be 4, and after that it's going to be 5, and after that let's give another delay, and over here we are going to change this to starting game, and after random delay we'll just disable the whole panel. So let's go up and create a few new variables. So public game object, public game object menu panel, public game object matchmaking panel, public game object game panel. Let's go down over here, let's do matchmaking panel dot set active equal to false, game panel dot set active equal to true. Alright, so now let's go up and create a new variable called public transform, and this is going to be an array, and call it bots. So we will be assigning all our AIs under this, and create a new variable called public transform zone. Let's go down. So what we are going to do is we are going to spawn the players while they join the game. So over here let's do bots dot 0 dot game object dot set active equal to true. So as soon as the text changes to 2, we will spawn an AI, so it looks like the players are joining in real time. Let's set this to 1, 2 and 3. After that, over here let's do zone.gameObject.setActive equal to true, and we will enable the fourth bot, that is going to be our bomber AI, to true. Alright, so now let's create a game start function. So the game starts when the player clicks on the play button, instead of starting right away as soon as the player touches the screen. So let's do public void start game, and over here let's do menu panel dot set active equal to false, and then we will enable the matchmaking panel. So matchmaking panel dot set active equal to true, and also at the top let's set the game started equal to true. Alright, so now let's go back to Unity and go over to our game manager. Let's assign all the variables. So assign the menu panel, matchmaking panel, game panel. Let's assign the zone, then let's assign our AIs. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. After that let's open up our matchmaking panel and let's assign our player count label, loading image and hint label. And for the hints, let's create a few random hints. So I'm just going to create 2 for now. And then another one. Alright, now one more thing that I forgot to do is rotate the loading image. So let's go back to our game manager script and go to our start function, and let's do loading image dot do rotate. Okay, so first we need to make sure we have using dg.twinning at the top, and now let's do rotate new vector 3 0 0 and 1, so it will rotate the image on the z-axis, and then the speed is going to be 1 dot set loops -1, and loop type is going to be incremental. Also set ease to linear, so ease dot linear. Alright, now save the script and go back to Unity, and let's hit play. Alright, so it is rotating, but it's rotating very slowly, so let's fix this. Go back to our script and change the speed to 0.1f, and let's try now. Alright, so it is better, but still very slow. We need to reduce it even more, so 0.5. Also, it's moving towards the anti-clockwise directions, so let's make it -1, so it rotates in the clockwise direction. Alright, that works, but as you can see, our text is also rotating with it. So let's deparent our text like this and change the name to count label. Now it should work fine. Perfect. Now let's go back to our, now let's disable this matchmaking panel and enable our menu panel. Let's go back to our game manager script, and let's delete this part, as we are going to start the game when the user presses on the play button, and go to canvas, menu panel, and go to play button, and then click on plus and add our game manager to it, and then do start game. Alright, so now let's hit play. Let's hit play, and the game starts right away. So let's fix this. So I'm going to go to my matchmaking panel and change the count label to 1 out of 5. Then also delete the text from the tips panel. Then let's disable this. Now select all our AIs and move them up like this. Then also make sure to disable the nav mesh agent, or else it will return errors, as the nav mesh agent doesn't work when the AIs are floating in the air. So make sure it is disabled, so it will enable as soon as the game starts. So over here, go down to our game start function. Let's change the name to search match, and let's create a new function, public void start game, and let's move the game start equal to true in this. Save the script and go back to Unity. In game panel, go over to joystick, and let's add a component called event trigger, and click on add trigger and select on pointer down, click plus, and game manager, start game. So as soon as you click on the screen, the game will start. Now we can disable the game panel, and let's hit play now. Okay, also disable all the AIs. So now let's hit play, click on play. Alright, it is starting the game. Why? Let's go over to our play button. Okay, yeah, we are doing game manager.start, so let's change that to search match. Let's hit play. Okay, so it's not increasing. Let's open up our script, and okay, so we are not calling this function anywhere. So in the search match, let's do start coroutine, do matchmaking, and let's hit play again. Let's hit play. Perfect. And now another thing that we need to fix is the player name. So as you know, I've set the player name to Ninja, but it's showing a random name, so let's fix that. Let's go to our player setup script, player setup function over here, and over here let's do if I equal to 0. That means it's the player, because the first player is the character control player in this list. Else we're going to do this. Over here let's do name. Actually, let's create a variable over here, and over here let's do name equal to username. Now let's go back to Unity and let's hit play. Alright, so now it's not showing the name at all, so let's go back to our script and see what's up. So if you go to our start function, you can see that we are calling setup player before we do our username logic. So let's move it down, save the script, and let's hit play now. Perfect. So it did change the name, but there is one more thing that we need to do. That is, if I go now to the input field and change my name, it doesn't update the name or the player in real time. So let's do that. So go down to our save name function, and over here let's do player. Actually, we can simply copy that line and change the I to 0 and change the name to username. Save the script, go back to Unity, let's hit play. Now if I change, it changes in real time. Perfect. So let's hit play. Okay, but now it is not changing the name on the leaders board. So let's check what's up with that. Okay, so we need to do copy this part, paste it over here, change the I to 0, and now that should fix that problem as well. Save the script, go back to Unity, let's hit play. Alright, so as you can see, our tips panel is empty now. So let's go to our script again. That's the thing, guys, you need to play test everything. When working with UI and user interface, these things really break a lot, and you need to constantly play test and fix the bugs. So let's go to our start function, and over here let's do hint label dot text equal to hints random dot range 0 hints dot length. So this will set the text to a random hint. So let's go back to Unity now and let's hit play. Let's hit play. It shows a tip, it's spawning the players, and when you hit the screen it starts the game. Perfect. Now one more thing that we need to do is set the camera angles. So when the player is in the menu, let's zoom up our camera like this so it looks more cool, and when the player is in matchmaking screen, we can zoom it out like this so all the players are visible, and when the game starts we can again zoom it back in like our normal view. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to my game manager script and create a few new variables. So public vector3 default in-game camera position, then public vector3 match making camera position, and let's go to our editor, go to our game manager, and this is going to be our default position. So let's copy, so let's go to our game manager and paste it, minus 17.6. And for our matchmaking, we are going to zoom it out a bit more, like so. So all the players are visible. So this is going to be 13 and minus 36.9. Paste the values. Alright, now let's zoom it in. So this is going to be our default camera angle when the game starts, like this. Alright, so go to our script and let's go down to our do matchmaking function, and over here let's set the cam follow script dot enabled equal to false, and cam dot transform dot do move to matchmaking position. For duration set it to 0.5, and down here let's do cam dot transform dot do move in game position and set it to 0.5. And after that let's do dot on complete. We'll set the camera follow script back on. Save the script and go back to Unity. Now let's hit play. Alright, so our camera is not following our character, so let's see why is that. So it is still disabled. Oh, okay, so I should be setting it to true. Let's go back. Also go to our level and disable the zone. So by default it's going to stay this disabled and it will only spawn when the game starts. Now let's hit play. Okay, so our camera seems to be acting up. So let's go to our camera and disable the camera follow script from here, and go to our script and let's disable this part. And that is because what is happening is if I open up my camera follow script, you will notice that in the start function we are getting the offset, that is the distance between the camera and the player position. So as soon as the game starts, as this was enabled over here, so setting the offset based on the current position of the camera that is too close to the player. And now let's go back to our Unity. Let's hit play. Perfect. So one more thing that I think we should change is set the bomber position back to 0, as this is our game enemy, not a player that joins the game, so there is no point in spawning it like this. Just set it to 0 and let's hit play. Okay, I forgot to disable it. We'll fix that in a minute. But other than that, guys, it looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and disable it. Now let's create our game over panel. So right click, UI, and create a panel, and I'm going to call this game over panel. And now let's change the color to black and set the alpha to 150. I'll set these values to -2 so we don't have a white border. Next, let's right click, create a panel, scale it down like this, and then let's remove the image component and add a vertical layout group. Set the spacing to 10, middle center, and make sure width and height is true. Now let's right click, create an image, and this is going to be similar to the one that we created in our games panel. So let's set the color to gray so we can see what's going on. Let's create a new Text Mesh Pro text, and this is going to be our rank label. Let's move it over here. Let's duplicate it, move it over here, duplicate it. Change the names. Now let's select this and scale it down a bit and do it like this. Then select all the labels and change the alignment to center. Next, let's create duplicates, so duplicate it 4 more times and change the name to player. Then go to UI and drag and drop our rounded UI image over here like this, and then go to our game over panel and right click and text mesh pro text, move it on the top, and this is going to be our label where we will show which position did we finish at. So let's set the default text for now to smooth it up. Let's scale the rect transform and change the alignments. Let's change the font asset and let's change font size. Alright, so let's create the functions for setting up the values for our game over panel. So let's go to our game manager script, and inside of our game over function, let's do for each player in p in players, and let's go up and create a new variable for our leaderboard. So public transform, and this is going to be an array, game over scorecard. Let's go down over here. Let's do game over scorecard dot get child. Actually, let's change this to a for loop. So for int I equals 0, I smaller than players, dot length I plus plus, I plus plus, game over scorecard dot I dot get child 0, which is the rank label. So let's do dot get component text mesh pro dot text equal to sorted list dot I dot get component player dot scorecard dot get sibling index plus 1. Actually, let's set the reference for the player script, or else we will have to call this over and over again. So let's do player temp player script equal to alright, so now our rank label is set up. Let's set the name. So let's copy this line and paste it over here and change the get child to 1, and the name is going to be temp player script dot player name dot text. After that, let's copy this line and paste it again, and now let's change the get child to 2, and over here let's set it to score, and before that let's do a dash. Next, let's do game over scorecard I dot get component image dot color equal to temp player script dot scorecard dot get component image dot color. Perfect. Now it should update all our values of our game over panel. Now after this, let's go on the top and let's change the game over function from void to I enumerator, and on the bottom let's do yield return new wait for seconds, and we are going to wait for 2 seconds, and then we are going to set game over panel. Let's create a new variable for that over here, public game object game over panel. Let's go down and let's do game over panel dot set active equal to true. So when the game over function is called, it will do all this, and then it will wait for 2 seconds before showing our game over leaderboard. And then when the user taps on the screen, we should reset the game. So let's create a restart function, public void restart game. For this, we need to go on the top and do using Unity engine dot scene management. Let's go down again, and over here let's do scene manager dot load scene manager dot get active scene dot build index. Now let's go to where we are calling the game over function over here, and let's do start coroutine and wrap it up like this. Now let's save the script and go back to Unity, and now let's hit play. Actually, I forgot to assign our game over panel over here, so let's do that. Assign our game over panel and also assign our game over cards. So open up the game over panel and click on this lock icon, so it locks our game manager in the inspector. Open up the leaderboard, select all the scorecards and drag and drop them over here like this. Now we can click on this again, so it unlocks it. Now let's hit play. Alright, so I'm going to reduce the game timer to 5 to speed up the process. So game finished. After 2 seconds, it is showing our game over panel. Alright, so now we need to create a button that we press on, it will restart a game. So let's do that. Go to our canvas, right click and create a new panel. So it will cover everything, and set the alpha to 0 and make it a button. For transition, set it to none and click on this plus. Game manager restart game. Now let's hit play. We need to fix this part so it will show the position properly. So let's go to our game manager script and let's create a new function for that. Private void get rank ordinal int rank switch rank. So if rank is 1, if rank is 2, if rank is 3, if rank is 4, if rank is 5. set it to string, so it will return a string instead of void. And string ordinal equal to copy and paste. This is going to be second, paste, third, paste, fourth, paste, fifth. Now let's go up to our game over function. And over here let's do game over. Actually we need to create the variable for that, so let's do that now. So public text mesh pro game over position label. Let's go down, and over here let's do this, and text equal to, actually let's move it in here, and let's do if temp player script is AI is false, that means it's the player. So now we can call game over position label dot text equal to you finished plus I plus get ordinal I. Now let's save the script and go back to Unity, go to our game manager, let's assign the label, let's hit play now. I'm going to set the timer to 1. Okay, so you finished 0. Okay, yeah, we need to do I plus 1. Do the same over here as well. Let's try it now. Set it to 1. Perfect. Alright, so our game over panel is complete. Now the only thing left is creating a respawn panel, so let's do that. So I'm going to right click UI panel, let's set the color to black and set the alpha to 150, set left top right bottom to -2. Now let's move it above the game over panel, let's right click UI text mesh pro, also change the name to respawn panel, change the text to label, and change the text to respawn in. Let's change the alignment, let's change the font asset to Futura bold, let's increase the font size to 50, and let's move it up. Now let's duplicate it and move it down. Let's increase the font size to 60, and this is going to be our timer. Alright, so the default is going to be 3. Change it to respawn timer. Alright, so go to our game manager script on the top, and let's create new variables. So public game object revive panel, and over here let's do public text mesh pro UI revive respawn timer label, and also change the name from revive to respawn panel, as it's a respawn panel, not a revive panel. Alright, now let's go down to the respawn function. Yeah, over here. Now let's set respawn panel equal to set active true. Game panel dot set active equal to false. Then let's do yield return new wait for seconds, delay by 3, respawn timer label dot text equal to 2, and copy this, paste it, change it to 2 and do 1. Actually, let's just keep it to 3. And over here, let's do respawn panel dot set active equal to false, game panel dot set active equal to true. Also, wrap it up inside if t dot get component player dot is AI is false, or because we don't want this panel to show up when AIs die and only show up when the player dies. So let's do that. And let's do the same over here for this part. Let's save the script and go back to Unity. Let's assign a respawn panel and respawn timer label over here. Let's disable our respawn panel and let's hit play. So let's jump out of the platform and we get a respawn timer, and it is not respawning. So let's check why is that. Okay, so we need to change the delay to by 3 as well and paste it over here and do else. Then we'll simply do delay, because when it's following this loop we already have these delays, and then if we do this one it's too big of a delay, so we need to do it this way. So if it's a AI, it will just follow this and it's going to be normal like it used to be before, and but if it's a player we will be following this logic. So let's save the script and go back to Unity and let's hit play. Let's jump out. Perfect, guys, it's working as expected. Let's try to get a player out of the zone. Yep, it's working fine. Alright, so with this our 7th lesson is finished, and also our complete course is finished. Hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a lot of things. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me. I will reply them as fast as possible, usually within few hours. And see you guys in the next course. Cheers.